So this is the second series that APA New Mexico is conducting about the impacts of the COVID pandemic on the planning profession in New Mexico. And this particular event is really focusing on how planners within various disciplines in the New Mexico planning field are responding to the pandemic. And we're pretty excited because we have a pretty diverse group of panelists here today, so we're going to get a pretty varied perspective. So I have just a couple of housekeeping items as we get going here. We're going to ask everybody to just turn off their cameras and mute their microphones to really preserve bandwidth and kind of keep the background noise to a minimum. And then we are going to have, we have 4 panelists who are going to have about 15 minutes each to present, and then we'll have about 20 minutes for questions at the end of the discussion. And we just ask you to put any questions that you have into the chat feature that should be on the right side of your screen. And with that, I think we're gonna go ahead and get going. So I'd like to introduce Kathy Lay, who is the Executive Director for Main Street Roswell. Kathy is going to share how the Main Street program in Roswell is supporting their businesses during the COVID pandemic through a variety of business resource efforts and the transition to virtual rather than in-person events. So take it away, Kathy. We're happy to have you here today.
Thank you very much. My contact information will be at the end of the slide as well. But here it is if any of you want to take it down. You can go to page 2, please, Jessica. Main Street Roswell is a small nonprofit organization that's made up of volunteers. Our mission is to support the downtown businesses and all the stakeholders who are property owners or business owners that are within our perimeter in our district. And we want to create a really vibrant, thriving downtown district. So we use a lot of different methods. If you go to the next one, please, Jessica. The Main Street programs use a what they call a four-point approach. Not that one before. There we go. We operate in 4 strategies. The first is organization. That's where we build a real strong partnership with our businesses, with our property owners, with other community partners to help support our downtown. We work with promotion. That is where we organize retail events, festivals, radio interviews, cross promotions, ads, all kinds of things to help promote the downtown. We also do design, where we do facade projects, where we do grants that we help to get to the business owners to help them do things, as well as we do grants to help fund redevelopment and beautification of the downtown, pocket parks, cleanup, all kinds of things like that. We also do economic vitality, whereas we do training, we provide resources, tools, grants, loans, all kinds of things to help bring economic vitality to our businesses. That's kind of the 4 areas that we focus on. Okay, if you'll go to the next. COVID hits and everything has changed in the way we do business and the way we provide services for our business. And we had to really start thinking differently and doing things differently. Okay, if you'll go to the next one. In organization, everything had to shift where we were doing things online. We did our phone contacts with our businesses rather than in-person email. We do Facebook messaging. We do posts on a closed Facebook group. That has been a really good tool for communicating with our businesses. It's closed, so you have to be a member to see what's posted there. And we've used that a lot to try to get information, resources, links, and things to our businesses. We also help build real connections with them by sharing how they can connect other organizations, federal, state, city. We hold our normal monthly meetings with our stakeholders as a Zoom meeting like this, or we will do a live stream on our group page where we can talk and people can come and go and then they can watch the video afterward. If you'll go to the next one. In promotion, in the past, we have done a monthly retail event called First Friday Downtown Market. It focuses on attracting a crowd. We do music, food trucks. We have special giveaways. We do craft projects with kids. We have nonprofits come and set up downtown. We've brought in the zoo. We've brought in Runyon Ranch with a camel and kangaroos and all kinds of crazy stuff to get people to come downtown. And the shops will stay open late, offer special deals. Well, when COVID hit, that is no longer possible. If you go to the next one. In April, that was shortly after the COVID closure came, everybody was still kind of in a state of shock. Almost all of the businesses in downtown were closed. We called and emailed every person on our list with our businesses, and we got information from them what they were able to offer. We provided ideas for ways they could serve their customers, like curbside delivery, Facebook shops, offered to build them free websites. We did all kinds of things to help get them in contact with shoppers so that they can continue to do business. We changed our website to a business directory. That's a picture of it up in the upper right corner, where we listed the businesses and all the ways that people could contact that business or make purchases from that business. In April for First Friday, I did call-in radio interviews instead of in-person ones. We did a Facebook promotion event called Soul Downtown, which was show our local love. And we just did everything we could to try to get people in the community to supporting our downtown businesses, buying gift cards, calling in orders, going and picking them up in person, having it shipped out, whatever we could do. We also gave them the contact for the state website for businesses for the local shopping for that as well. And just at that first month, we were just all kind of still reeling. If you'll go to the next one. In May, we usually did a May the 4th be with you theme in May for our downtown, and we would do all kinds of Star Wars related stuff. We were beginning to kind of get in our stride, and we decided instead of doing an in-person craft with the kids, I made 60 do-it-yourself craft kits to make a do-it-yourself lightsaber. It's a pool noodle. We got carpenter's pencils from our downtown hardware store, and I wrapped duct tape and colored tape and all the things they would need. We printed the instructions on the front of a page, and on the back of the page, again, I contacted all of our downtown businesses, and we had a list of all the businesses and how people could purchase things from them. If they were open partially at this point, if they were only doing delivery, curbside, whatever they were offering, we actually made that listing and we printed it on the back of the instructions. And then we rubber banded those instructions with all the materials to a pool noodle that was cut in half. And we had people wearing masks that were our volunteers. They went to the little downtown pocket park, that's a picture there. Cars would pull up to the curbside, roll down the window, and our mask wearing volunteers would hand the kids in the car one of the kits, the pool noodle with kits. And we gave away all 60 of those to people that were coming by, and they would take those home. And now they have in their hand a list of all the businesses that were in our district that were able to still be people to go to them and to purchase from them. And so that was, we felt like that was a really good way to kind of shift our out of the box thinking for what we normally did. You'll go to the next one. For June, we decided we would do something similar because a lot of the businesses were beginning to open, but not all of them. We, again, contacted our businesses to check on the status. We contacted our Dunkin' Donut that is in our district. They offered to give us 100 coupons that were good for 2 free donut holes. And what that was for is because Father's Day is in June, we had 1 donut hole would be for the child and 1 would be for their father figure, their dad, their uncle, their brother, whoever was the father figure in their life. And we called it Donuts with Daddy Downtown. And we put the flyer out and we stapled the coupon to the flyer. Our mask wearing volunteers, again, we're at the park. We went on the radio this time. I actually went on the radio, and a couple of them in person. Some of them were call-in radio interviews. We sent out press releases every month. We were able to promote it on our website, on our Facebook page, and cars again would pull up. We gave away all 100 of the coupons. They would go immediately. They could drive through the drive-through at the Dunkin' Donut. They typically bought more than just the 2 free donut holes that they got. And they also had the list of all the businesses and how they could go by in either if they could go in person, what their hours were, if they could call in, order online. Again, they had that in their hand in the month of June. If you'll go to the next one. July, we typically do our 4th of July is when we do our UFO festival downtown. We were not able to do that because public gathering was not allowed, but we had already purchased some merchandise that was going to be swag for giveaways. We usually every year we do what's called the passport program. There's a picture of the little passport up in the top there next to the number 5. It's a little printed book about the size of a passport. It's got the list of businesses inside that are participating, and they have stamps. People will take the passport to the business and the business will stamp it. When they get enough stamps, like 10 or 15, depending on how many businesses are participating that year, we try to at least get about a quarter or so of the businesses. They bring them to us, we give them a bag full of swag. And so we had the swag already purchased. We contacted our regular sponsors. We got them to provide more funding so that we could have the passports printed up, so that we could buy additional swag. We had t-shirts we bought. We did in-person interviews. Our local radio station actually did a live event over those 3 days, and they were on the air interviewing ufologists, playing music from some of the bands we would normally have play. They gave little factoids and tips and all kinds of fun stuff, talked about what we were doing downtown. They offered us 200 free advertisements over the course of those 3 days, where they named the businesses that were participating in the Passport program and hours and information about the business. Every business that wanted to send them that was participating in the Passport and the UFO Festival, the virtual UFO Festival, they contacted that radio station and they gave them free advertisement. And then they could purchase additional advertisement, very discounted, over the course of that weekend or over the course of the month if they chose to. We also had social distancing. Everybody was encouraged on the radio interviews, on our event page, every place we had it, and on all of our posters, please wear your mask and keep social distancing. So people were able to come down. We had music from local musicians on the courthouse steps. We set up tents and canopies on the courthouse lawn. People would come up, our masks, hand sanitizers, hand them a passport. They would visit with wearing their masks. They would visit the different stores and go and shop a little if they were open, get their passport stamped, bring it to us. We gave them swag, like the really cool coin that's a collectible coin that glows in the dark. We also sold t-shirts and other swag stuff that made up, I think we sold almost $2,000 or $3,000 worth of merchandise as well. So we did fairly well on getting the money to put back into the event, and people got to go down and visit downtown. The music, we had no chairs because we didn't want to encourage public gathering, but people could walk around. There was live musicians. We put up our selfie stations, our life-size alien. They took selfies, like that shows us they're taking selfies with our masks on. So we had to kind of shift the way we did it, but we still managed to do something downtown. And there were enough people passing through or living locally that came out, that participated, that we had a pretty good turnout for that. You'll go to the next one. By now, we're really starting to get our feet under us, and we're really being a lot more creative and out of the box thinking. And we're kind of getting the hang of doing this virtual stuff. For September, we typically do a chili cheese festival at the end of the month, but we decided to roll that event into our first Friday. And so for September 4th and 5th for First Friday, we did a downtown scavenger hunt, and virtual chili cheese festival was kind of what we rolled it into. The same radio station offered to do a virtual event. They did little factoids about living in New Mexico, or about chili, or about milk or cheese, or Excel Energy also provides some funding for that, and they talked about energy. This is an event that kind of supports our big economic drivers in our community and some of the big groups that employ the most people, and that's what we celebrate with the Chili Cheese Festival. So we contacted our sponsors. They were very generous again. We were able to contact all of our businesses. We had 38 businesses. We've never had this kind of participation because we're not a big downtown, we're a small area. 38 businesses participated in the scavenger hunt. They picked one item in their store or in their store window if they were not open to the public, but they had things in their store window and information how to call if they did call-in orders, like a flower shop that does delivery, but her doors are not open, but she's still taking orders. Things like that. A jewelry shop that's not open to the public, but they still will do online sales. They chose an item in their window. Everybody else chose items inside. We gave them a little sign that says, "You found it." And in the little white spot, we asked for the description of the item, and we wrote that description, 2 or 3 words, like it might be an alien wearing a t-shirt, or it might be an old spinning wheel. And then the business, we took the signs and gave it to the business. They put that little sign on the item they had selected. We had maps that had all 38 businesses listed with the address, the hours, and a place to write in that special item. We printed 500 maps. We gave out probably around 250 of those maps. Some of them would take them. Some people didn't bring them back, but what we had is a $500 cash prize for every business. You got the right answer, you got 1 entry into the drawing. We also had people from the businesses donated gift certificates or merchandise. We had enough to do a second prize that was a $350 value, and a third prize that was a $250 value of merchandise and gift certificates from our businesses and our community partners. We were able to give out those maps. We set up our tent. We had hand sanitizer. We wore masks. We got the people to come, we'd hand them a map, and they went. I had 21 maps that went to every single business, all 38, that they visited every one of those businesses. I'm still tracking all the maps. So I don't have all the totals yet. Sorry. I'm going through every map, and every business that's listed, I'm counting. So I'll know exactly how many people went to our businesses that day. We also had Albertsons who donated little cups of ice cream that were sealed with little wooden spoons. We had hand sanitizer donated by the COG, Council of Governments, and the Southeast New Mexico, oh gosh, I get this acronym wrong every time. They donated 200 bottles of little hand sanitizers. So we were able to give them hand sanitizer, a little cup of ice cream for free. Excel donated LED light bulbs, packs of those light bulbs. We had those to give away free. Sparklight gave us 200 little carrying bags with handles, as well as a bunch of swag. So we had that swag to give away free. We also ordered some chili pins that were shaped like ink pens, shaped like chili, so they could write on their scavenger hunt map, and other swag as well. We put our leftover UFO Festival stuff out. We sold $1,000 worth of leftover t-shirts and stuff from our virtual festival. We had musicians playing on the courthouse lawn, and we had a very good turnout. And businesses were really excited. Some of the ones that were out of the way that didn't even get passport people to come by, they went because they wanted that extra entry. If they got 27 answers right on the map, we gave them 5 extra entries in the drawings. If they got all 38 businesses, we gave them 15 extra entries, so they could have 53 chances to win $500 or one of the prizes. We had a tremendously successful event. People wore masks, hand sanitizers, social distance, stayed in their family groups, but they got out. Some of our businesses said people came in to look for the item, and they bought stuff too. I visited with people, they were saying, we never even knew these shops were down here. So it was very successful to help acquaint them with the businesses and to get a lot of foot traffic. And it was because we did one entry per correct item, it encouraged them to go to every business, not just 10 or 15. So this was a much more successful event than even our UFO Festival. If you'll go to the next one. One of the other ways we've dealt with things is in design. As you can see, we did the spring cleaning and spring planting. We encouraged people to stay within their family groups or to be wearing masks or both, but it was outside. The flowers were donated by Keep Chaves County Beautiful. And then we had volunteers came from the Garden Club and Girl Scouts and the Pioneer Bank. Different ones sent volunteers. We gave them flowers, potting soil, and they went down and they planted all the flowers downtown. It's an activity that we could do for beautification, for design. We also provided information about grants that were being provided by the EDC, the Roswell Chaves County Economic Development Corporation, for facade improvements. One of our downtown businesses applied for that, El Toro Bravo. You can see the facade after they finished it up. It is spectacular. It was so much better than it was before. They did like the faux brick on the front. They painted it a really cool Western sort of awning type thing with lighting around it, painted the top half red with beige trim. It just pops. They also put in a new patio, so now they have outdoor dining. They're utilizing some of the resources with loans. I provided information about PayPal protection and a lot of those other things. A lot of our businesses took them up on that. That's one of our businesses that just did a facade facelift during the COVID shutdown. We're starting now to raise funds for our holiday lighting downtown. That brings a lot of people out to do photographs and things and gets them down there. It is something that can be done without having to get mass gatherings. So we're doing that right now as well. If you'll go to the next one. The fourth area we work in is economic vitality. Some of the things we've done that will help promote economic vitality in our businesses is I've been sharing consistently grant information, loan information, webinars on free trainings, information about articles in the newspaper. I found a really cool article that showed a restaurant that used clear shower curtains to help divide tables outdoor dining to where they could actually safely dine. All kinds of creative ideas. I'm sending that to our businesses through direct emails or putting it on our group page or both. We also are relaying news from the city, state, federal, the state Shop Local website, health orders, resource listing, city permit. You can see one of our businesses there that's next to my office actually, La Gran Victoria, when they shut down indoor dining. The city allowed our restaurants to do sidewalk dining. As long as they left a space open wide enough for wheelchairs to get by, they could get a special permit. I was able to tell all of my restaurants downtown, hey, if you guys have space for a wheelchair and a table, you can go get this permit. The city will give it to you for free. You can do sidewalk dining, go get it. The city has helped to kind of accommodate some of the need for our businesses to kind of tweak how they do things and their permitting, and to support our businesses so that they can, survive. So they've been very accommodating for our businesses. I'm able to provide that information to them. We always maintain a list of available properties in our district, but we started posting open properties. We lost like 7 businesses shortly after COVID shut down. Within the first couple of months, we lost 7 businesses. I would post the property availability on our Facebook page. We filled 6 already, and by July, we had 6 new businesses downtown in the midst of the COVID. But we just provided and told them, hey, this is prime real estate. We've had real creative entrepreneurs open up in those spaces as well. Still looking for another one. We also have other business properties that are open. I provide that list to anybody who contacts Main Street Roswell. I can email them that spreadsheet for any potential business owners. I've had them contact me directly. And so we have that available. We're constantly maintaining it, looking for when businesses close, adding it to that list. And we're getting ready to now make it go live on our Facebook page, on our website, mainstreetroswell.org. So we're gonna have an available property list on our actual website. So that people that are interested in moving into the district, they can go look and see possible in the contact information and maybe where that might fit their needs or not. When we know the zoning, if we know square footage, anything we know about that business, we try to put it on that spreadsheet. And so that's some of the resources that we've been doing to try to help support our businesses during the COVID crisis. And if you'll go to the last slide, this is my contact information right here. On my last spreadsheet thing there, my email, my phone number. I am not in the office because I'm working from home, as we've been requested to do if possible. I check into my office about once a week or so, but there is our PO box for mailing, my personal email, my work cell phone, or excuse me, my personal work email, but also my cell phone number. You're welcome to text me, call me if you have questions. If you'd like copies of our map for our scavenger hunt, or our found it signs, or things to kind of see it up close. I believe the slideshow presentation can be made available if you'd want any of that information as well. I talk really fast. And I'm open for questions. I'd be willing to help on anything you need help with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. That was some great insight to innovative ways of how to help small businesses that might be suffering. And thanks for making those resources available. I'm sure that the participants appreciate that. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here so that our next panelist can get her presentation up. So our next panelist is Elizabeth Halpin. She's a senior planner and the manager of Albuquerque Public Schools Capital Master Plan. That's a mouthful. So Elizabeth recently served on APS's District Reopening Logistics and Operations Committee, and she's going to provide some insights into the planning process, the criteria, and some of the implementation processes the district has thought about and undergone to reopen the schools in a manner that allows for the safety of their students. So Elizabeth, whenever you're ready, go ahead and take it away. Oh, you're muted, Elizabeth.
Okay, so I'm going to just say hi so you can see my face, and then I'm going to share the screen and turn the video off so you can see my slides. All right, can you all see the slides?
Yes.
All right. So, like Jessica said, I am Elizabeth Halpin, and I work with the Capital Master Plan here for Albuquerque Public Schools. And I'm going to talk to you today about some of the work that the district has been doing to not only continue education online for remote distance learning, but also prepare for what reopening schools looks like when that time comes, per the orders of the state, as well as at the discretion of the Board of Education. So before I get into it, I just want to provide some context of the Albuquerque Public Schools District. For those of you who are not familiar, Albuquerque Public Schools is the largest school district in the state of New Mexico. We have 142 schools. We serve around 80,000 students. There is approximately 15 million square feet of built environment that we are responsible for maintaining, operating, and planning for. We have a service district of about 1,200 square miles with 14 overlapping jurisdictions. This includes the entirety of the city of Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, parts of southern Sandoval County, and then of course we have Sandia Pueblo, Laguna Pueblo, Tojajili, Isleta Pueblo, Chilili, and the Atrisco Land Grant. Just to provide some numbers in terms of the context of the kinds of students that we're serving, 20% of our students have an IEP. That's an individualized education learning plan. That means that 20% of our students are special education and they receive some kind of additional service outside of the classroom to assist them in their learning. We have about 25% English language learners. We have over 60% of students who receive free lunch and about 3,000 homeless students. The reason why I bring these numbers up is because this manifests in the built environment as well as the kinds of educational services that the district provides across a continuum of communities. We are not hegemonic. So in terms of the community, the overall community, there's about 260 households that reside in our service area. And you'll see that some of these numbers actually now will be higher because of COVID. I'm sure that New Mexico, Bernalillo County has a higher rate than an 8% unemployment. And I'm also really curious around this number of families living in poverty and also the homelessness factor. Okay, so with that, we are currently, as a district, we are learning remotely. There is no in-school learning happening with the exception of the high-need special education students, and that is a very small percent of the overall population. So since Monday, March 16th, we have been closed. Our schools have not reopened, and the district quickly mobilized to provide immediate services and resources to our students in the following subsequent months. And then we went into the summer and we were able to really do some comprehensive planning about what reopening would look like come August. So since March, we've provided over 3.5 million grab and go meals at 90 different sites across the district. We also have distributed 79,000 student devices, and we've collected and acquired over 32,000 safety signs. We designed them in-house and we printed them in-house, and also 6,800 sanitation and safety kits for classrooms. And this is more preemptive for when we actually reopen in some kind of hybrid scenario, but we're ready to go. So this is the map of the different schools that provided the service of the grab and go meals when schools were completely closed and over the summer. Here's an example of some of the signs that we have distributed, 32,000, and this is across the district, right? Because we had a packet created for each school, whether it's elementary, middle, high. So if any of you have children that attend APS schools, eventually when you go to these buildings, you'll see all these signs. And they're really cool because they have this sticky back that you can put on walls, and actually the floor, these arrows are for the floor, and they also have like this thick plastic material that you can wash and sanitize. Okay, so this mobilization of district resources to begin mitigating these pandemic impacts among our families and our students were really enabled by this effective institutional preparedness that APS has done a lot of behind the scenes work, and you won't hear about it in the news. But I'm actually very proud to be part of a team that was prepared to respond to this. And that's because there's 5 things that I've identified that we were able to do. So the district operates off of an asset-based approach to inform community needs and solution rather than this a deficiency kind of mindset. So we're also able to leverage the district's economy of scale to do things like produce 32,000 signs and distribute 3 million meals to students and families. And this is also enabled by the district's existing investments that we've made over the years. An example of this is our central food processing plant and our investment in educational information technology. The 4th component is that we have a team of planners to support operations. And as planners, we are tasked with looking at systems comprehensively and identifying the gaps in service provision, and then coming up with recommendations on how to begin filling those gaps. And then, of course, number 5 is smart financial practices. We have, as a district, we have a pretty thorough capital master plan program that has been in the works for over 30 years. And so we've had a lot of opportunity to learn what works and what doesn't work in terms of the financing piece and long-term planning in terms of the infrastructure, educational infrastructure that enables us to respond to crises that we may not have planned for. So I just want to share with you the 2 components about the infrastructure because they're critical to the district's ability to respond to the pandemic in terms of the distribution of meals to families and students. So in 2015, we completed a renovation of an old Kmart that became our central food processing plant and distribution. We have refrigerated trucks and vans and warehousing that meet the needs of 80,000 students district-wide on a daily basis. But since COVID has happened, we prepare and distribute 35 meals a day to families up to 90 sites from across the district. And we also work with the city and the county to help mitigate some of their service gaps around meal distribution. And then education technology, this is like the hinge. This is the only reason why we've been able to continue to operate and provide educational services online at a massive scale is because in 2019, we completed an infrastructure project of 235 miles of fiber optic cables that enable high-speed internet connectivity to all of our sites, all of our schools and administrative supports. This project was a $20 million project that we were able to leverage local funding through the school mill levy taxes, and then also able to enter into the federal E-rate funding that was made available. And in addition to that, $20 million investment in the physical infrastructure of cable, we've also invested $25 million from local school mill levy taxes to purchase student learning devices as well as staff. And we are utilizing the CARE funding provided by the federal government to provide wireless hotspot devices, and also will hopefully be reimbursed, for a lot of the different, sanitation, signage, technology pieces that we've had to purchase to fill the gap operating under the pandemic. So with that, we responded quickly. We were able to pivot and continue providing services in the shortly after we closed school back in the spring. But then once the school year ended and we knew that we were not going to be reopening schools most likely in the fall, the district leadership ended up putting together a series of task forces to begin planning for how we would reopen school and whenever that would be. So one of those task forces was the Logistics and Operation Task Force, and we had representatives, teachers and principals from each grade level, and then of course your standard operations teams. We had the Director of Transportation, Food Services, Capital Master Plan, Maintenance and Operation, Student and Family and Community Supports. They're critical. They're the ones who oversee all of the district services related to student wellness. So nursing was a critical stakeholder in this group to explain the kind of the critical need for student wellness and what that would look like when we were reopening schools. Of course, APS School Police for the security component, circulation, campus access looks completely different when you are reopening schools under a pandemic. And then of course, stakeholders from technology. So some of the things that we discussed and we had to, address head on was transportation, bus pickup and drop off. How could we even do that with social distancing? Campus access and security, classroom use guidelines, playground use, what is the status of the HVAC in our classrooms, cafeteria, the student restrooms, sanitation, the nursing component, library use, because it's like everyone circulates in and out of libraries, all of the the tactile component of media centers, and then of course athletic facility usage. How do individual schools respond to a COVID outbreak on site? And of course, school scheduling plan. So these were the different criteria that we had to consider coming up with a set of recommendations for the district on the feasibility of reopening and what that would look like. So as the planning component to this task force, our mission was to establish existing conditions and the feasibility of the built environment to accommodate different capacity scenarios at all of our different schools. And so what we ended up doing was we started off with 3 schools in elementary, middle, and high school to do some capacity scenarios. And then we also took some of our crowded schools to do capacity scenarios before just like all out addressing 142 sites. So let me go back up here. I kind of went over this slide. So there's this technical planning analysis that had to really be the foundation to everything that this logistics committee came up with, because again, what is the district's physical capacity to reopen schools when you have a social distancing order? So everything that we do in this planning department for Albuquerque Public Schools is based off of utilization and capacity spatial analyses. And that's the primary building block for identifying facility needs. So we ended up doing 6 case studies with 3 different capacity scenarios, just like the general everyday capacity, a capacity of, can we even do social distancing with 100% of students on campus? And then what does a capacity scenario look like with 50% of students on campus? So we ended up developing 142 planning packets to be distributed to school principals in support of school operations when APS schools reopen. And this is a hybrid. This is a 50-50. What does this look like? And so it took us approximately 12 weeks between 4 planners, over 1,000 hours to generate these capacity scenarios and packets for 142 schools. So I'm going to share with you what this packet consisted of, because this will get into some of the criteria around what does a hybrid 50% student on campus look like. So there's this summary report that states the assumptions of what social distancing measures mean. And so this analysis assumed that there would be no more than 15 students per classroom. And that comes out to be about a 50 square feet per student occupancy with this reduced capacity per classroom. Alternating weekly schedules with 50% of the student enrollment on campus at any given time. No spaces to be used that were less than 500 square feet. We had to have a minimum of 1 COVID isolation room for elementary schools. This is an elementary school that we're looking at. And then 2 for middle and 3 for high. District special education, these are like the really intensive need programs, students that, you know, they have either like a health assistant with them, or they're pretty much in their classroom 100% of the time, and their pupil teacher ratio is standard 8:1. I mean, that's without pandemic. So we were able to determine that a lot of the special education components may continue with, of course, intervention where needed. And then physical education will be held outdoors when possible. You know, the student meal and nutrition component, again, would be determined by the individual school size population. The specialized spaces such as library, fine arts, music, STEAM, computer science, and physical ed, those shared spaces where students are rotating in and out, they either have to operate at a cap of 15, or it's more of a push-in model where, you know, the art teacher's coming into a classroom rather than the students going into our classroom. And then, of course, all of this triggers additional staff support. And that's a challenge, to not trigger additional staff, because there's literally no budget, right? The state did not allocate us additional, you know, full-time employees. So, of course, the passing periods, arrival, dismissal, restroom use, transportation, that was part of the whole committee's component. But as the planners, we dealt primarily with the school facilities themselves and the capacity of each site. So, you know, we identified how many classrooms would be needed based off of a 50-50 scenario that didn't trigger additional teaching staff, and also where these COVID rooms are, and then, you know, the breakdown of enrollment. And then we provided, again, just another manifestation of the individual schools by program, by space, what those needs would be. And then we also provided them with a coded floor plan. Right here, we would designate each COVID isolation room for each campus. And so we actually just wrapped this process up last week. We were able to get all of the schools packets sent out to the principals. And of course, these are guidelines. We respectfully acknowledge that principals a lot of the times have on-site knowledge of their community and their school, where, you know, they may have discretion to assign programs to certain spaces, but really the ultimate thing was every school had to have a COVID isolation room, and you had to abide by this, you know, 15 students per classroom cap max. And so this is for when schools reopen, that we're not even operating under any of these assumptions right now because we're learning from home. But anyways, in conclusion, we're still learning the lessons because we're still in the middle of this pandemic. So, but first and foremost, long-term investments pay off, and sometimes in really unexpected ways. The central food processing plant and the investment in education technology, we were able to just on a dime turn around and quickly provide services to students and their families. This is also an opportunity for us just as an industry to become stronger, better practitioners, because you know, we've seen with COVID that there's been this stark gap for quite some time, but the pandemic has like illuminated these entrenched social, racial, and economic inequalities. And for planners, this means we have an opportunity to just become better, and also like really, you know, the world is watching us, that our country is watching us, and we know, like, people are expecting that, you know, this be dealt with, and people are thinking about things, I think, for the first time in a really long time around, you know, that these inequalities, the social, racial. And then also, this is more of like for internal planning practices, but when in doubt, rely on your standard operating procedures for structural support when the unprecedented and unforeseen just erupts. We are in a unique position to contribute to emergency preparedness and response by planning and advocating for these long-term investments in sustainable community infrastructure, resources, and services. This is schools, housing, food security, alternative transit, economic development, public safety, healthcare, parks, open space. I mean, it's like, it's there, it's in our faces that we need to continue to advocate for these public services and facilities. And then, of course, planners may not be writing the pandemic response plans or the public health policies, but we have we are in an appropriate position to identify community systems, their strengths and weaknesses, trigger points, all the while recommending feasible mitigation options to the operation experts. So with that, thank you, and I stand for questions at the end of the series.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. I think it's really great to hear the district is being so proactive and pragmatic in their approach to reopening schools and distance learning. So thanks for sharing all of that information. And if you can just stop sharing your screen for me for just a minute, and then I can get our next presenter set up here. Thank you. Let me get the screen going here. All right, hopefully everyone can see that. So with that, I'd like to introduce Jane Lucero, who's the Associate Director of Operations and Planning for the Albuquerque Sunport, and she's been in that position since 2018. And she's just going to discuss the impact of COVID on the general kind of airport industry and how the Sunport has been dealing with COVID and their response to it. So Jane, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. So as Jessica said, my name is Jane Lucero. I'm the Associate Director of Operations and Planning here at the Sunport. Have been here a couple years and never thought I'd actually be at an airport during a pandemic. So next slide, please. And sorry if you guys are hearing noises. I'm down kind of on the airfield, so you might hear some baggage carts and stuff. Just to give a little overview for today's presentation, I'm going to talk about Airport 101, just a little bit about the Sunport, what our economic impact is, how COVID has affected us, our recovery plan, and then development plans. So next slide, please. So for those of you who don't know, these are our airport partners, FAA, TSA, Customs Border Protection, all of our airlines, which you can see listed below, concessionaires, and our rental car agencies. Next slide, please. This map was pre-COVID. So pre-COVID, we had 20 nonstop destinations. After COVID hit, which I'll talk a little bit about later, currently right now, we're down to 15, sometimes 17 direct or nonstop destinations. And part of that is because some airlines have temporarily left the market. So next slide, please. These are just our enplanement and deplanement numbers. So you can see we had, in calendar year ending 2019, 5.4 million passengers. We had $70 million in total revenue. And since 2016, our passenger enplanements and deplanements have grown about 12%. This was a big deal for those of you in the aviation industry because we were really concerned about how the Wright Amendment going away was going to affect our passenger numbers here, but since that has gone away, we've really increased our number of flights and passengers. So we were happy to see that 12% growth. Next slide. So for those of you who don't know, the airport is a little different than other city entities. We operate as an enterprise fund, meaning we make and spend our own money. So there's no airport revenues. We don't get anything from the city's operating fund to operate the airport. And all of our airport revenues are governed by the Federal Aviation Administration. Next slide. We currently have 300 city employees at the Sunport, 3,000 total employees, so that includes airlines, rental cars, all of our concessionaires. And we're currently undergoing a new study, a new economic impact study for Double Eagle and the Sunport. But the 2013 economic impact study concluded that the Sunport is responsible for $1.9 billion in economic output for the state, and 20,000 jobs are directly or indirectly related to the Sunport. So next slide, please. So March 2020, COVID hit. I think March 11th or March 17th was the last day, but anyway. So in March, once COVID hit, our numbers, as you can see there, our passengers declined by as much as 98% of our lowest day. So for comparison's sake, in April 2019, we had 416,955 passengers come through our airport. In April 2020, we had 17,701. So the terminal was like a ghost town. Unfortunately, the airport's in a position where we can't close down because not only do we have commercial service, we have medical flights, we share the airfield with Kirtland, so we couldn't just shut up the airport and hope things get better. Once COVID hit, we completely halted all marketing campaigns for non-stop destinations, any new airline service, that was all halted. Our airline operations were changing on a daily basis. So on average, Southwest, which has about 50% of the market share here, they were operating at 35 flights a day. And in April and May, they were down to 17 total flights a day. A lot of our other airlines, United, Delta, they went from 11 flights to 8 to 4 to 5. And then we actually had 2 airlines that completely canceled flights altogether. So it was fluctuating. We were getting schedules on a weekly basis on how things were changing. Next slide, please. So as I said, in March, this is our terminal in March 2020. As you can see, this was taken during the day, it was not at night. One of the things we had to do initially from a city standpoint was to completely, we went into emergency mode. We started shutting down bathrooms. What could we do to reduce our operating costs? Shutting down escalators, shutting down elevators. Each department had to shave 10% off of the current budget immediately. And one of the hardest things we had from the operational side is we were kind of flying by the seat of our pants because we didn't know what our enemy was. So airlines were changing on a weekly basis. So we had to continually overcome disruptions in operational service and by adjusting our operations. So next slide, please. To give you an idea of what, and this is 6 months later, mind you, of how COVID is affecting aviation in general. So nationwide, September 9th, which was a couple Wednesdays ago, last Wednesday, the total customers in the entire US was 616,000. A week prior to that, it was 579,000. So there was a 6.45 uptake from the week to week. If you compare that to the same day last year, the total customers nationwide was 1.9, and that's a 68% drop in passengers. The only good news about this is TSA wait times are really low at the top 7 airports. So if you are flying, you don't have long to wait in line. Next slide, please. In Albuquerque, on the same thing, our total customers for Wednesday, September 9th was a little over 1,900. The prior week was a little over 1,800, so we saw a 6.8% increase. Albuquerque, the same day, September 9th, 2019, was over 7,000 customers. So we're still down about 73% of our customers. Next slide, please. So what have we learned? We learned that our conservative estimates weren't conservative enough. Meaning, budgetary wise, we cut 10% off. What we couldn't estimate was how much airlines were going to be dropping flights. And the biggest thing is, how do we give the public confidence in flying again? So as many of you know, one of the biggest events in aviation history was 9/11. And within 2 months after that, the president had signed the Transportation Security Act to give us TSA and safety protocols and procedures for bag screening, whereas we are 6 months into this pandemic right now, and there hasn't been a similar standardization of safety protocols. So essentially, each airline, each airport is doing things differently. We're just navigating it on our own. Obviously, as a team, we're working together, but that creates a lot of uncertainty with passengers. Our direct flights and airline operations continue to be impacted by COVID. We're getting a little more even with our flights now, but we're not up to pre-COVID levels, and it'll probably take 3 to 4 years to be up to pre-COVID levels. And then we had 2 rental car partners that have filed for bankruptcy. So what do we do now? Next slide, please. So one of the biggest things to keep our employees and our traveling public safe, that robot there, we are leasing this robot which sanitizes all the high impact areas of the airport on a nightly basis. We have extended our sanitizing, so by closing bathroom, our custodial staff doesn't have to, we just sanitize the bathrooms that are open, wipe down the handrails. We put sneeze guard at all the counters. Face coverings are required throughout the terminal. And then we have daily temperature checks for staff and tenants. Next slide, please. So as I said before, one of the biggest issues is that we are losing money because we're losing passengers. So we had to look at different planning aspects of development opportunities at the airport. So next slide, please. So ACE, which was the side previously, it's the old 1735 off of Gibson, if you guys are familiar with that area. We're working several leads, but we have an immediate need for non-aeronautical revenue to have us, since we're losing our aeronautical revenue. So looking at new development opportunities over there. Next slide, please. Inside the Sunport, we have upcoming construction projects, so post-security improvements. At $30 million, we have a food and beverage contract, retail and newsstand, and a FIS station. So these are all new, quote unquote, new projects that we can implement to increase our non-aeronautical revenue. Next slide, please. And then obviously you can't have an airfield without, or an airport without an airfield. So we have a lot of upcoming construction projects. Some of these are funded by the Federal Aviation Administration, and some of them are funded by the Sunport itself. So we have a taxiway echo rehabilitation, new cargo facility ramp extension, a west terminal, and a taxiway rehabilitation. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, the Sunport, we have a substantial impact on the city and the state. And as you are aware, COVID has had a drastic impact on Albuquerque and the country as a whole. And one thing I can say that we have learned over here at the airport is we can overcome massive disruptions by adjusting our operations and constantly adapting to the new environment. And that's something we have done well, is just constantly adapting to the new rules and regulations that are put into place by the state. We have a strong plan for recovery. Our Sunport and our team has long-term vision goals, and as you saw in previous slides, there's always development and construction at the Sunport. So I hope you all guys do come flying, as the TSA wait times are really, really low. The max wait time is like under 5 minutes right now. So next slide, please. And that's it. I will stand for questions at the end.
Great, thank you, Jane. We really appreciate that, and hopefully we can all take some comfort in flying a little safer, knowing that the Sunport's efforts. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so our next presenter can get set up. So our next presenter is Sixtus Dominguez, who is the Injury Prevention Program Coordinator. And that is funded by the Indian Health Service at the Albuquerque Area Southwest Tribal Etymology Center. Sorry, I'm going to slaughter that. And he is going to discuss the AASTEC's Tribal Support Response and Activity during COVID. So whenever you're ready, Sixtus, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Cuira Materva. My name is Sixto Dominguez. I'm Apache from my mother's side and Raramuri from my father's. So I hail from the southeastern part of New Mexico, the Pecos River Valley, down south where the Apaches' traditional territories is. And my father is from Chihuahua, Mexico. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the 3 presenters before me. That was a lot of information. So since I'm in MG prevention, can you still hear me? Oh.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Everybody just take a break. Take a deep breath. Take one with your nose and one with your mouth. And then the next ones, if you can just take them through your nose as you stretch your hands. I think we all need this. And as you do that a few times, I'm going to just play a little flute song. This is for injury prevention. I'll start with my presentation now. Let's set up my slideshow. I'm going to share it. Okay, I'm assuming everybody can see that. Can I get a thumbs up? Okay, great. As I mentioned before, I just wanted to do a little stretching exercise. I do work in injury prevention at Aztec, the Albuquerque area, Southwest Tribal Epidemiology Center. It is a privilege and an honor to be here with amongst the planners. And so my presentation centers around kind of giving you some background information about Aztec and also the Albuquerque Indian Health Board. But I want to take just one moment, 10 seconds, to have silence for the people affected by COVID-19. And so that we can try to get through this. So we have it to try to put our intentions in a place that we want to get to. So just 10 seconds. Thank you for that. I also want to acknowledge where I am right now. I'm here in Southeast Albuquerque, south of downtown, and this land is Tiwa territory. So I want to acknowledge that here I'm sitting in Albuquerque in a design build, a vision that we had as a family, a tribal indigenous family, to design our own building, traditional contemporary inside the city of Albuquerque, and make that for the future. And so I work in health as a health planner. And in 1975, there was a Indian Self-Determination Act and the Indian Educational Assistance Act that gave Indian tribes the authority to contract with the federal government to operate programs serving their tribal members and other eligible persons. It's been amended several times substantially and revised in order to increase the tribal participation in the management of federal Indian programs to help ensure the long-term financial stability. I say that because the Indian Health Board, where I work, has several components. It was a vision that 6 tribes came together in the 70s after this Indian Self-Determination Act. It's called 638 for short. And the board has 6 communities that has members that govern the board, and that is from a Rama band of Navajos, the Tohajale band of Navajos, the Mescalero Apache tribe, the Hickory Apache Nation, the Ute Mountain Ute tribe, and the Southern Ute Indian tribe. And in recent years, AAIHB, as we know, the Indian Board, as we call it for short, has expanded its base to include all the urban Indian population of Albuquerque and all of the 27 tribal communities. So Aztec serves, it mimics the Indian Health Service, which has 12 different service areas around the country. We are one of them, and there are 12 tribal epidemiology centers, and Aztec is one of those. So I'm just kind of giving you a little background information about our organization. We have about 70 staff members, and mine that I work for, that I serve the tribes as an injury prevention program specialist. It is part of the Indian Health Service program. It's a cooperative agreement to promote the capacity of tribes to build sustainable evidence-based injury prevention. So that's where I'm coming from. Let's see here. My presentation will shift now to the coronavirus situation, as my colleagues have spoken about in their individual circumstances in their areas. Us too, we had to shift our work to provide service to the tribes in their needed areas. And so Corona has changed many of us, all of us, I think. And so one of the things that we did was immediately shift our workforce to providing services to deal with the pandemic. And so we did that in a number of ways that I'm going to show graphically. One of the things that we did was to work with communities to provide, as an epidemiology center, we provide a lot of data, and we take tribal sovereignty very seriously. So tribal data sovereignty is very important to us. That's a number one priority for us as an organization. So what we saw is that we needed immediate information to get out to the communities. We were asked to partner with a number of communities, including and organizations like the Indian Health Service, the New Mexico Department of Health, and others, to start providing mitigation in the best way that we could. So all of our staff members pretty much shift their work to do that. One of the things that we did first was develop some small media. And we did this with participation from tribal communities, and they needed certain things to make very clear what was necessary to move forward in COVID and how to respond to it in very specific ways. We have an artist, well, many artists that work at Aztec, and we started developing these small medias and making them available, and we can print and send them to tribes as needed and community members. So another thing that we did was we began to make fact sheets, and we were already doing this for a number of different, we have 9 other programs at Aztec prior to the COVID-19. So we began developing fact sheets very specifically for tribes. We did some that talked about how to give information to the children about COVID-19. We also were trying to provide different other fact sheets, and how to frame that is one of the things that we as a necessity for us and as a tribal indigenous planner, is that we try to make culturally relevant information for our communities. And so we try to do that the best that we can, while also providing a background of the epidemiology specifically for each community. And so we have, I think we have about 6 epidemiologists now on board at the center, including our director, Dr. Kevin English, who is a wonderful person. And also I want to mention our executive director, Ann White, who supports Aztec in a lot of different ways, and our board of directors. But we started answering common questions and setting up these fact sheets, just very specifically about COVID, just giving the basic ideas about symptoms and what they could include. And along the way, of course, we've had to alter these fact sheets because, like some of my colleagues mentioned, there was a lot of changes happening, in fact, daily. And we looked at the number of symptoms. We had to try to convey that information to our partners. So we were asked to partner, like I said, with IHS, the New Mexico Department of Health, and we actually began implementing a contact tracing team very early on. And that involved training. It also involved working with individual community members. And we did that when we were asked by specific communities to assist them in contact tracing. There's some more information here, and you can see that there's this theme that we have. There's some basic information, but we also wanted to keep to Indigenous core values, and that is very important. As Indigenous planners, we have to maintain the fidelity to our worldview as Indigenous people, Indigenous communities. And so that revolves around the family, around communities, around tribe. And also we saw very early on that the messaging that was coming out really wasn't in line with the First Peoples. And so we see that this idea of social distancing came out early on. Our community members had difficulty, well, I don't know about difficulty, but they had other ideas about that. So we started changing the concept from social distancing to physical distancing. So we need to maintain physical distance, but we need to stay in contact with one another and maintain our social ties. And that's very important for Indigenous peoples. And it's also very important for communities. And it's one of the most core values of community development as far as Indigenous people are concerned, Indigenous worldview. So this idea of social distancing was very non-congruent with the ideas from an Indigenous perspective that we talked about more of physical distancing. We need to stay in contact with each other to support one another, to continue our traditions as much as possible during this time. And so that was a huge part of our messaging. And we started to develop some very specific ideas that included Indigenous core values. Again, we also have a responsibility to protect our communities. So even as states and tribes reopen, we still have to be careful. And there's a lot of different messaging that was going out there. We needed to customize it to our service population. And we've been doing that. We still do that today. We have a number of initiatives that are ongoing. We also, if you look at the Indian Health Board, we have a website there. There's a link from the Indian Health Board website that can link you to Aztec. And then shortly after the pandemic hit, we were asked to create another website that had specific COVID information. So we have 3 major websites now that are all linked together and that provide these fact sheets, these images for free downloading to anybody. And so they can also be mailed out to community members. If they contact us, they can order them. We can make posters, we can make flyers, and those are all free of charge. We provide that service as an epidemiology service. I don't have the count now. I was very impressed by APS with those numbers of their printing, but we've been printing and sending out. Essentially, our office in Uptown has been a mailing station. So we have most of our staff is working remotely, but we do have printing that still happens and some things that have to be done in person. So a lot of it is sending out information, including PPE that we're able to provide to tribal members when asked. So again, some of the topics that we decided to, that we saw as a priority, how to deal with COVID-19 and diabetes, how to deal with COVID-19 in pregnancy, COVID-19 in elders. Again, the idea of social distancing versus physical distancing. There was a lot of mental health presentations that we have been provided to tribes. We continue that on an ongoing basis. Also ideas about face covering. We see face covering in different ways. I live in Albuquerque and I see it, people wearing face coverings improperly a lot of times. So we just decided that was another really important topic that we have to show examples of how to properly protect ourselves and each other. And also managing symptoms at home. How do we do that with COVID-19? Talking to the children about COVID-19. How do we clean and disinfect our homes properly? So and a lot of these topics have actually been, revised presentations. We have a regular discussion with tribal leaders every week. and we provide updates and presentations. And then there's links and also fact sheets and very specific guidance that we're providing as an epidemiology center. On testing, as we know, there's been a lot of issues with testing. And so we've been staying on top of that. Our staff sits on a number of national boards and organizations. We're in constant contact with the Indian Health Service, the CDC, and others around the country. And so we get a lot of brand new information actually daily. And so we have to understand these ideas of prevention for caregivers. There's a lot of caregiving that happens. So we also started developing information for the caregivers and steps for close contacts. Self-care has been very important during this time. It's always important, but especially now with the physical distancing and the isolation and quarantining. And as I mentioned before, we've developed a new website that includes all the social media that can be downloaded, or also you can put a request there for us to mail those out to you. We also have a Facebook page that's linked to that, an Instagram page as well. One of the main things that we did that I spoke about earlier was talking about case investigation, contact tracing, and case and contact monitoring. So currently we're working with about 10 communities and in partnership with the New Mexico Department of Health again. We have weekly calls with them. We've also developed, as an epidemiology center, we provided the service to have a HIPAA compliant server to hold documents and to provide websites and internal documents for communities. And so that's called the Southwest Indigenous Data Portal. And so we were able to actually develop that for contact tracing. And so we house our own contact tracing monitoring investigation server. We've also developed protocols, scripts, and trainings. We've added new staff thanks to the CDC Foundation. We've been able to hire actually a lot of, I think it's around 10 new individuals, 5 new individuals just for contact investigation and contact tracing. And so we've been expanding our staff during this time. The communities requested situational reports that we started putting out every single day, 6 days a week initially. Recently, we've tailored back to every 3 days. So Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This goes directly to tribal leadership. And it actually talks about global highlights, regional, national highlights, and emerging data. And also the very specific local New Mexico data. And so those are very important reports. Like I mentioned before, we service 27 tribal communities, including a community in Utah, 2 communities in southern Colorado, all of the tribal communities in New Mexico, and a community in Texas. So we're pretty busy as an epidemiology center. I mentioned earlier that we have this weekly response call. It's every other Wednesday where tribal leadership and partners come together and they can ask very specific questions about what's happening and share some of the best practices that they're doing in their communities. And this has been another way for us to dialogue. It's usually a Zoom call, and we have usually about 50 to 60 participants every week on that. Another thing that we've been able to do as an epidemiology center and an Indian Health Board is bring in some funds. So we've had a lot of subawards and grant writing that we've been doing, including supporting tribes to do their own grant writing. But right now we have about almost $3 million that we've been able to subaward to the tribal communities. We've also been able to have another $750K for behavioral health needs, and then being able to assist about 22 Albuquerque area tribes to get direct funding from the CDC themselves. So that's another thing that we're doing, trying to increase the capacity the public health capacity of each tribe to take the healthcare in their own way and to strengthen that during this time. I mentioned also that we've been able to acquiesce PPE and then distribute that. So like I mentioned before, we have a number of mailings that we do out, not only for fact sheets and posters, but also the PPE, and that's been another big project of ours. So our office is just filled with different in and outs from the mail. Next steps. So we're going to continue our current activities. We do comprehensive evaluation within our program. We also do that when asked by tribal communities to assist them to do this. We provide successful strategies, lessons learned. We do gap analysis and resource needs. We also came upon a new subaward opportunity that was right around $1 million, and that had to do with the ACEs, which is suicide and prevention work during the pandemic, adverse childhood events that comes out of the CDC, I believe. We've also worked to do CDC COVID-19 data that we continue to do. We develop new fact sheets on a regular basis, and we've been focusing our efforts lately on webinars and trainings for tribal communities. Some of them are trying to go ahead and conduct their own contact tracing, and so we've been able to develop webinars and trainings to provide that service to them as well. So I think that's all I have for you today. If we have questions, ideas, or comments, I'd love your feedback. Again, my name is Sixto Dominguez. Thank you to New Mexico APA. It's been an honor to be here. There's my contact information if you have any questions.
Thanks for sharing that effective and culturally relevant responses to the pandemic. We really appreciate it. And I just want to take a minute to thank all of our panelists for graciously donating their time to share all of these great perspectives with us today. It seems like we've only had one question come in so far, and it actually looks like there's already a response to that in the comments, but if anybody else has any additional questions, please let us know now.
I had a question for Elizabeth. Elizabeth, thank you for your presentation. It was wonderful. And I love the way that APS is taking the leadership in their response to COVID. Thank you so much for that. My question was the COVID isolation room, is that for actual, how would that be used?
So
It's implemented if.
yeah. The concept behind the COVID isolation room is when we reopen schools and there still is COVID happening, should students exhibit any COVID-like symptoms, they then are escorted and sent to the COVID isolation room until they can be physically picked up by either, their guardian or parent, and there can be an assessment made in the COVID isolation room that's separate from the nurse's office, because at nurse's offices, a lot of the times you can't fit more than one student with the nurse in the office. It's pretty close quarters, and should students be, I don't know, they hurt themselves on the playground or something like that, and they need to receive medical attention and not a non-COVID way, we want to keep those functions separate from one another. So really the COVID isolation room is just kind of like this, it's almost like a waiting room should a student need to either go home or receive medical attention due to COVID.
Thank you.
So it looks like we had one additional question for Jane about the airport robot, to tell us a little bit more about it, if you can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so what the robot does is we're actually leasing it, and it goes through and puts a disinfectant on all the high traffic areas of the bag claim level, all 3 levels. And so it's some sort of special disinfectant that goes through, and it runs pretty much from midnight to I get in about 5 in the morning. So from midnight to about 5, just going through and disinfecting all the floors.
Great, thank you. So I'm not actually seeing any more questions in the chat, and we're about out of time. So I'm just going to hand it over quickly to John Valdez, who's the APA New Mexico president, for a few closing statements.
All right, thanks, Jessica. I just want to thanks again to all of our presenters. You gave us so much knowledge and information that I think we all need at this time. So thanks again for your time. We really appreciate these presentations. They were all excellent. Thanks for participating in that. And thanks to our members who are who participated as well. We appreciate you being members of APA and especially APA New Mexico. And thanks for participating today. This is something that we want to try to do for you more often because we appreciate your membership. We want to also reinvest in the membership by doing some of these trainings. Want to thank Jessica for putting this together and for James and Rachel for giving her some support on this. Again, just as an effort for us to be able to deliver content to you in this time so that, because I think planners are going to be leading the way in helping us post-recovery and any information we get to you, especially from the different New Mexico communities, I think is going to be more helpful and we hope will benefit you in your jobs. So thank you again.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.